Hello and welcome to the Fanpubcast. Welcome, Sean. How are you?
Feeling really good, Al. I can tell that you're really up for this one.
I'm up for everyone.
It's going to be exciting this week. We've had some great questions. We'll talk about those at the end of the video. And there's lots to go through already. Things are starting happening in the NFL, aren't they?
Well, the first question is, where's the NFC? And now we've lift by magic. We're
going to talk about them, are we?
We'll talk about the chain and a team. Obviously, a team I support.
Yes.
We're starting with the NFC East and the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
So plenty of change. I'm not sure it's all for the good. I'm a big pessimist myself, so I'm a bit worried.
Okay, well, there's definitely some good things.
I'm hoping you'll allay my fears a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where do you want to start?
Well,
let's start with the positive.
Let's start running back.
Yeah, let's start there. That's
Ezekiel
a good idea.
Elliott.
Well, let's start with it. Let's just add in the fantasy implications, right? First off, obviously, still the best line in the NFL, without question, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first. That's the big positive, and it's a massive positive. The other positive, of course, with the running game is he didn't play the whole season, and that may not sound like a positive, but if you think about where Ezekiel Elliott finished, to me, in redraft, that makes Ezekiel Elliott one of the best backs to pick with the first pick. Simple as that, in my view. Yet you can take any of the top four. They're all good. Of course, they're all great, and any will do. But I think in redraft scoring, I think Ezekiel Elliott is eye-watering actually for this season. In PPR, it's a different game, but you should be very excited with the year ahead. He's got a chip on his shoulder. They can give him the ball as many times as he can cope with. He's certainly capable of 300 carries if they want to go that route. He can catch out of the backfield. He's not the best at it, but he's not the worst. And I think that's an improving aspect of his game. So for me, that's what you do to steady the ship. Dak Prescott in his first season came in and flashed absolute brilliance. In the second year was a bit more where offensive coordinators have had a year to plan and scheme, and then obviously Elliott's suspension doesn't help your initial confidence because you haven't got him there. So I think those things combined to give you a bit of a setback, which probably is a bit unjustified because Dallas did look a little bit rocky at times.
It seems to me that our plan at A, B, and C is run the ball.
Yeah.
The problem comes.
Yeah.
The problem will come is when we're behind.
Yeah, of course.
We're chasing games, so that means if we're not so good, I don't particularly rate our defense. So that's not good, and our offense seems to have got weaker in my book.
I think the running game is solid as a rock. It's arguably one of the best in the NFL. The problem, you're right, is the wide receivers. I don't trust. At this stage, I am not comfortable about that aspect.
I mean, we've lost Des Bryant and
Yeah.
Jason Witten. They're two standing dishes of that receiving core.
That's the issue, and that means that you kind of think from that aspect there's going to be a season of transition. But I think you've got some nice pieces coming in. I'm quite taken with the rookie wide receiver you've got. That looks quite interesting. I'm sure we'll talk about him.
Michael Gallup.
Very much so. Very taken with his opportunity. Because we always talk about opportunity. I think he's got a good one. I think he's a good fit there. And I think if the chemistry does build between him and Dak, that will be something. Perhaps not for this fantasy season. It's not going to be massively relevant. But I think going forward it could be very relevant. And I think that's going to be one of the building blocks going forward. I think Dallas was very unlucky that Philadelphia kind of snagged the tight end that they really wanted and coveted.
And they didn't even need him. It was just spiteful.
It's clever spitefulness from a defending Super Bowl champ. It's quite clever. You take what the others will need and you build off it. They don't need it, but that's not the point of taking the pick. But I think that part of the game is going to be interesting, and that's where it's going to be fascinating because Dak Prescott this year has to steady the ship. He has to show those credentials.
But hasn't he got the weapons to do that?
I don't know. I would fear a little bit for him in that aspect of the game. And I think the confidence was the thing that worried me last year. I think he showed he got back a bit more on track as the games went down the stretch a bit more for Dallas. But that was because Zeke was back and had a bit more confidence in their ground game. But that's the worry for me. He did get found out a bit, and it's whether he can take another step forward as a professional. Some players don't always make the next step, and we might have seen the best, and that's the problem. But he needs time. It's not like it's over. He'll have a few more seasons to develop on this.
I mean, let's just touch on the receiving core. So we've now got Bobby Allen Hearns, who's come in
number one for you guys
from the Jags, and he's going to be the number one wide receiver. So he's a potential sleeper because he's not going very high in drafts.
I think if you're looking at player with a big upside as his ADP, that would be one I would definitely put a circle around and say, you know what, if you wanted a player whose ceiling could be much higher than his current situation with his floor, this is a very good one actually. He's never really been a traditional number one for me, Alan Hearns, so I haven't seen that aspect of his game. It doesn't mean he can't take the step up because he's a professional. He's been around the league.
You look at the other candidates, Terrence Williams.
Yeah,
I think we've seen enough of him to know.
I'm always surprised he keeps holding on to his camp job. I mean, I always feel he's
He had some
steady.
off-season trouble as
Yeah,
well.
he's steady, he's okay, but never ever does enough for me to go, I want him as a player.
I don't think he does enough for anyone to say I want him.
But and he doesn't really factor or do enough, in my view, to be in any kind of fantasy talk. So he's one of them kind of throwaway players who ends up, if he's picked, it's because it's a deep league, and you really are a bit disappointed you've got him. You're going to end up dropping him for somebody else who comes through the cracks, aren't you? So
one thing I did read was that Cole Beasley was lined up on the outside.
yeah, that does make a lot of sense. He's got a lot of pace, a lot of speed, but that also worries me. He's quite a small guy, and those X's and Y's have to take a bit of a pounding. And
surely he's the ideal slot receiver.
More likely, I would have thought, but maybe
they're experimenting with
maybe
things.
that's what they've got to do, is make some changes to suit Dak's game and stretch the field more, and that's maybe what they're trying to do, or that's the implication it's giving, actually, I think. So, should be interesting now.
Okay, I mean, tight end is another one. Everyone's saying who'll be the main tight end. When Witten left, he said Jeff Swain would have to step up.
Right.
Every fantasy guy will tell you it's Rico Gathers,
Yeah.
but he's not getting the first team slap, so he won't be.
Yeah.
And the guy that seems to come out in the mix is Blake Jarwin, who's an interesting one, but I don't know how much you can trust that. But
I think you're looking at, if there was a worse thing to talk about in fantasy football, it's this: a tight end by committee. I mean,
well, you got Dalton Schultz, a rookie as well.
Can you think of a worse situation to have for any fantasy team? I really don't see anybody shaking out. I think it's going to be a mixture of different players as they experiment through the season. That's a worry. And I think that's a tight end area to avoid, I think.
They've added two players as running backs into the team.
Yeah.
One that you quite like, Bo
Yeah,
Scarborough.
very much so, yeah.
He was at Alabama.
Well, if anything, you think this is another reason for it. I'm glad that you brought him back up here, because if you think about Ezekiel Elliott having to probably carry this team on its back, and they're certainly capable, we always say opportunity will trump everything else, and even if he has a tougher year, you don't expect him to get, as long as he's healthy, less than 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns. I just see nothing less. There will be some sprinkling of some catches. There's got to be.
And Rod Smith will be in the mix.
Yeah, Rod Smith. But then if anything was to happen, because the over workload, Bo Scarborough's a fantastic one to own, because he will inherit an absolutely amazing system, and he's not a bad back.
And he'll be probably the goal line back if he did go down.
I think he's got a great
because he's a big bruiser.
Yeah, he's really powerful. So you would like him behind that line, and I think Dallas could close games out actually and take pressure off Zeke, particularly if they are winning games.
Do you think No, I think it. I mean, the other person we need to talk about is your old favourite, our favourite of the show, the mighty midget, Tavon Austin, who they signed.
Yeah, well...
And you kind of like, seriously, I mean, I was teasing you all last year about
you got him.
Austin, because you're a Rams
I was
fan.
hoping you'd bring him up, because, I'm glad you've got him. I'm so glad that he's gone to a team like Dallas for this season coming up.
I've been reading he's going to get 14 to 16 touches a game. And if that's so, if that is true,
it would be amazing.
He's got speed.
Yeah, it would be absolutely amazing. It would make him incredibly fantasy relevant.
And you couldn't get him any price you like.
I honestly, genuinely believe that's going to happen. Would I take a flyer on Tavon Austin? Not a chance. No chance. Not a hope.
Not even
no way.
Not even
a late. It would have to be me drunk at the end of a draft to take him.
I think it's worth getting you drunk just to make you take him.
I'm never going to touch him. He's just not even the poor man's anything anymore. He's just not going to happen. So
we'll move on to the Boo New York Times. Sorry, the New York, not Boo York.
Yeah.
Well, they have the number one fantasy relevant player added to their team, Saquon Barkley. I think everybody knows who he is by now.
I'm very excited they did this. You know how much I wanted Giants to do that. To be honest, I was really advocating that would be the right pick for them. I suppose that's a fantasy bias there, but it just, to me, it made sense. You've got OBJ, who needs somebody as well as another focal point to the team to take a bit of pressure off him, because he is a bit of a target. He's a brilliant player, but he's been taking some hits, and this would do it. This will really do it, because you can't cheat up or do anything. And I think this helps Eli Manning massively. This totally helps the team. There is obviously still going to be issues, because that line isn't the best. There are issues there.
No, and their new guard, Will Hernandez, wasn't he in a fight as well?
It doesn't.
That's not ideal.
Not an ideal situation. I mean, so it is going to be the hard yards. Saquon Barkley is going to have to get. But if there was ever a situation where it's probably for the bet, this for me is the best fantasy fit for him. It's a great opportunity. He can carry a huge load for year one. Fantasy relevance massive. We've already talked about
It
that.
changed the dynamic of the whole team, because the one thing that the Giants have really struggled with the last few years is a lack of running game.
Massively.
I mean, Darker had flashes.
Yeah, massively.
But we're talking...
You need consistency. You need someone who's going to be a step up. And also he can catch. So you've got an outlet valve. You've got a really brilliant outlet valve. So if Eli Manning first read isn't there, the second isn't there, you can just look for the dump off. And that's a big moment for the quarterback, because this guy he's very good in space. So, you know, he can take a 5-yard dump off and he could go the distance. So it is exciting. And that will help Eli Manning a lot. I mean, it really will. He is definitely on the decline, there's no doubt. But he's a cheap quarterback to own as a second, or even if you wanted to take a punt on 2 quarterbacks because you can only start one and you thought no one else is going to take him. There is some thing to that where sometimes that just works out. You know, we've seen this happen with the Alex Smiths, the throwaway player, when really we should have all seen that all the pieces are right. There's fantasy relevance, and we just didn't realise that safety valve would work out really well. It's the same here.
I think the thing with Eli Manning, anyone that's drafted him in the last few years will have been burnt.
Very badly. Yeah.
Now you can get him anytime you like. He's got Barkley. He's going to catch passes from him.
Yeah,
you know,
score touchdowns through the air.
Hopefully
touchdowns through the air.
Yeah, Beckham's back for the year.
Yeah.
Obviously they've got Sterling Shepard still, who's
and they're not going to make the same mistake they made last year. The Giants. They're not going to put OBJ out there in pre-season games. That's never going to happen now. I don't see that happening at all, because I think they've realised that they've got to save, you know, marquee players. You save them for the season. You don't.
I think he's got to play a few.
You might take a mini series. We're talking minor series maybe, but I don't see a lot of action really for these guys.
I mean, they've lost Brandon Marshall, but he didn't really do anything for them anyway.
No, it's probably it's right for both parties. Better to move on.
What about Sterling Shepard? Do you think?
Well, I think this whole situation actually with Barkley massively depletes his value in my book. I'm not buying into it for this year to be an improvement. I think it'll be pretty much the same of what you've seen, really. If any improvement, it's all very steady. That's it. It doesn't excite me enough to worry about how is he going to explode. I don't see that at this stage.
Evan Ingram
need an injury. Well, his price is overly inflated.
Because you're not a fan of his.
No, I mean I like the potential. Don't get me as a tight end. I'm sure the numbers will keep climbing, but not compared to last year. See, last year everybody was injured. Who did they have left? Evan Ingram, and he benefited from that. So his numbers look massively inflated. I think he's going off the board at tight end 4 or 5. I mean, it's crazy money.
He is a receiving only tight end though, so
it's crazy.
He's not a great blocker.
I think there are many other tight ends you can get.
And he's kind of one of them hybrid wide receiver tight ends. So.
And there's a lot to like. And in that offense, in the end, it could pan out very nicely for Evan Ingram. But compared to last year, you won't have that kind of opportunity again unless everybody collapses around him. I don't see it. So no, I'm not a buyer at those very steady high prices. It has to he'd have to fall a lot lower than that.
Roger Lewis.
No, that's no. We'll move on.
Obviously, the most exciting player they've signed as well, Jonathan Stewart, Stew.
He always ends up doing something, doesn't he?
Is he someone that could vulture touchdown, or is he just someone there? He's an old hand, a veteran to.
I think you bring a veteran in at this stage of Barkley's career to offer some mentoring and guidance to someone who's actually done it. That's invaluable to a rookie coming in. Saquon Barkley sounds like the sort of guy who's a real pros pro who wants to come in and do amazing well. He wants to set records. He wants to show how good he is. So you need that kind of mentoring, and I think that's really what he's there for. As for vulturing, no, he won't vulture anything. No, it's all going to be It's going to be Saquon Barkley's backfield, and we'll see what happens. I'm quite excited to watch it.
So how high would you draft Barkley? Because that's the big question.
Number 5 overall in any league format.
And you're talking above Antonio Brown, DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, because I can't get these kind of points. I won't get them with those players. Now,
especially in our league when there's 16 teams.
As much as I love DeAndre Hopkins, as much as Brown is fantastic for a redraft, we all know that. You know, we understand that, but just because of the way that if you look at, there's 1 year in the last 7 where wide receivers outscored running backs. 1 year, that was it. And what has been shown ever since, that was a blip or the outlier to the truth. Running backs have always ruled the roost fantasy-wise. They will continue to rule the roost unless the league move to committees all across the board, which won't happen because there's always going to be exceptional players and you have to give them the field. You're going to have unique stats. And so for running backs, I would definitely go for him. Some may say it's crazy because we've got no metrics on it, but rookie running backs do not need the kind of metrics you need with other players. They don't need the time. All they need is 6 inches of daylight, and they're gone. And this guy is one of them kind of athletes. You know, I've got no doubt he will do very, very well year one. So how well? Well, you know, I think you can count on him with very, very big numbers, and maybe 2019, when you've got him on your dynasty team already, you're sitting with arguably one of the best picks coming off the boards anyway.
And running backs are players that tend to do better in their sort of earlier few years.
Yeah.
And obviously when they've got a lot on miles.
Well, it's a bit
apart from Frank Gore, obviously.
It's a bit of a misnomer, actually, because a lot of people say, you know, that the rookie running back's shelf life is short, and that's obviously true. It's roughly 3.5 to 4 years is the window, which is fair, and Frank Gore is the exception. He's the granddaddy of all running backs. He does it. He'll still probably do it this year, I believe. But if you think about wide receivers, they often take 2 or 3 years to mature into the kind of player they could become.
Or even to get an opportunity.
So by the time they're really relevant, that they've actually had the window, the same length of window. It's just a different way of looking at it. So that's really how you have to view it. For me, it's early doors is where you get the big value, and that's why, you know, for me, redraft year one, I wouldn't hesitate. You've got to take those kind of risks to win it. So okay. I have him at 5, and that's the kind of price people have to pay for him in the leagues we get involved in, because you won't get him any lower. If he drops to 6, I'm taking him 7. I'll have him all day. He will not drop to 8, and if he dropped to 9, I'd be like, I really want that. I'd be happy to have him. Wouldn't bother me.
Okay, well there you go. Very big on Barkley for this year.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the Eagles then. Super Bowl champions. It hurts to say it, but that's a matter of fact, unfortunately.
Yeah.
They stole Dallas Goedert, as we talked about, the tight end, who could be exciting. You know, he could have been exciting for Dallas, but, you know, sitting behind Zach Ertz unless Ertz
well, they
gets
can
injured.
use 2 tight end sets. I mean, the one thing that's...
but probably not first year. They're not going to use him that much,
The one thing that the Eagles have done exceptionally well, I was examining the game tape, and this is very fantasy relevant because, you know, we're going to talk about the players, but it's a very, very fair point, this. The thing they did really well is when we talk about the modern NFL, like a lot of college games, like a lot of Brit games over here, are based on the run-pass option, RPOs.
Yeah.
And there's a number of reasons for this, but it all boils into the quarterback, really, and their ability to read the game and what to do in that given situation. But the Eagles do it the best of all of them. If you look back and look at the tape of how they were using the RPOs, they are developing the RPOs in a very unique way. They are taking bits of the field and they're actually saying, here we have a cross over for 2 wide receivers, and we know if the underneath guy, if this guy doesn't do this, he's wide open, and they are the best in the league at it. And that is one of the reasons they went on this very hot run, even without their talisman, Wentz. I mean, Nick Foles came in.
I mean, you hardly noticed
you didn't see a
downturn
at all. And the reason was simple, really, for me, is I had to go back and really look at the footage and think, well, how did they not skip a beat? Because I don't classify Nick Foles in the same camp as Wentz. And I've got to also take a step back here and say, anybody that wins the Super Bowl, it wasn't just one game the guy played. He played a good few games last year.
Yeah, he did. He never let him down, certainly.
He proved how good he was, how solid a backup he is, and a good pro that he was. We've seen flashes in the past.
A good pro in a good scheme.
You know, and he certainly understood what they were doing. He had clearly, and this shows the calibre of the quarterback, had been, you know, he wasn't just being paid the bench money. Yes, he gets paid to sit there and wait for his opportunity. But when he came in, he was ready. He'd obviously watched all the tape. He'd taken all the notes. He was completely on board with the entire program. It was as if nothing changed. And he was absolutely brilliant. And in that final, he went toe-to-toe with Brady, and they outgunned them. And they played a game plan I have never seen done well before, first time ever, which is, we can match you slug for slug because your defense can't stop us.
Made it a great final.
Brilliant final to watch.
Upsetting, but great.
But was good. So that's amazing. So with Wentz coming back, you have to feel the Eagles have a great chance to go deep again. They must go close because they've got all this knowledge. The coach has showed his ability to scheme uniquely with the RPO plays, which is fantastic. Okay. And they're the best in the league at it, in my view. And look at all the weapons they've got to play with.
Well,
looks exciting.
I want you to talk me through their running back situation because they've got 7 of them that could contribute.
Yeah.
And so we've got Jay Ajayi.
Yeah, okay.
Obviously, he's probably the main starter.
Yeah.
They brought back Darren Sproles.
Yeah.
They got Donald Pumphrey, who could be the heir to Darren Sproles, taking over him. Wendell Smallwood's still there.
Yep.
They signed rookie Josh Adams as an undrafted free agent.
Yep.
Corey Clement, very exciting, showed some very good.
Talk about him in a minute. Yeah.
And Matt Jones, who they brought in, who won an RB competition that had
Okay.
Terence West
Well,
and a few others
we
in.
can now be very open about this, and it will not come as
And
a
the-
huge surprise to those that have seen what I've been doing dynasty-wise. Will notice a trend here. This is the trend, okay? I'm going to make a prediction. And it will fall onto my list of top 12 players to pick. But Corey Clement for this year is a player I'm all over. I'm grabbing him wherever I can. I don't care if it's redraft, dynasty leagues. If he falls to the right point is his ADP. Okay, it's as simple as it is. If his ADP says 70, 80, that's where I'm going to take him. And the reason I'm going to take him is because I actually have a very sneaky feeling for Corey Clement for this year that he might end up doing much more than anybody's capable of. And he certainly exceeded his expectations last year, because in the RPO plays, which is where this team is exceptional, he was phenomenal.
He was brilliant,
right?
In the flashes, though.
This is where you have to see the flashes to see where it's going. And I really believe that this guy will do really well. Now, I'm not saying he's an every down back. He's not.
ADP is 151.
Right? It's amazing good value, right? So if you want a player that I will go after a lot in any league,
These are the players that are going a lot. Ty Montgomery.
Because look, hold on.
And Latavius Murray.
Yeah, so let me give you this, right? So we talked about Judge. I don't trust him. Okay, I can't trust him, right? We've talked about some of the others there, right? Matt Jones, can't trust him. Rookie coming in, potentially, maybe. The one steady thing I saw was when you put into context these RPO plays and you look at the player that has the greatest chance to excel within the system and showed some real amazing games for it. This is perfect. This is lightning in a bottle. So Corey Clement, that's why I've been taking him. That's why I'm all over it for this year. And I actually believe Corey Clement will really do something amazing for this year. It won't surprise me if he ends up with 13 to 1,400 combined yards, 7 or 8 touchdowns. And when you think about his ADP position, that is a steal. That's amazing.
It's a backfield though that's crowded.
It is, but
and murky.
But it will steady the ship, because you have to be honest. Do you think Corey Clement has a role? Yes. How big a role? Well, we're not sure, but what we do know is we know enough to know that they're going to scheme. They're going to use him.
Well, they asked a player last year.
Yeah.
If you got anyone exciting that might break out, they said Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah.
And I latched on to it, and he had a great breakout.
I liked him the year he came into the league. It's very difficult. I wanted to take a punt on a wide receiver year one, and it never worked out. But the talent was always there, and it still is. And his ADP is cheap as well in fantasy. I'm a bit surprised. These are defending Super Bowl champions.
It's because he's had the couple of years where he's hurt people. That's why the value could be there.
That's great, because if you're looking at,
I think it was 8 touchdowns he got last year.
Yeah, well, when you look at it was
and
8
some real
touchdowns.
big ones as well.
It's 800 yards, 8 touchdowns, and his ADP is so through the floor that it's amazing out. So Nelson Aguilar,
he's a lot higher this year than he was last year.
Yeah, but Nelson Aguilar's value is great as well. So Corey Clement, Nelson Aguilar, they're good
111
names.
he's going.
So what's not to like? 111.
But I'll tell you what, they asked the same player this year.
Yeah.
Who will be the breakout?
So who did he say?
Matt Jones.
It's not going to happen.
He said...
Yeah. Actually, that's not necessarily true, because Blunt... that's not necessarily true. He may be right, because J.J. Obviously, Corey Clement can't carry a workload that significant. And I don't trust J.J., so Matt Jones would have a logistical chance.
They said he's going to take the
true.
Blunt role.
That's a very, very fair shout, actually, on Matt Jones. I can't disagree, because I'm
not saying it will. I'm just saying it was interesting.
I just don't think J.J. will do it. And I think you're paying a very high premium for his services, whereas I'm much happier getting
Matt Jones doesn't even make the ADP.
No.
So that's where you can get him. I mean, if you're in a really deep league...
It's worth a shot.
And you're thinking...
Who might?
Oh, I'm a bit short of a running back.
Yeah, we always take punts on these kind of guys. He has got a pedigree. I mean, the thing is, we've seen what Matt Jones can do, and it's certainly good.
Apparently, he was saying about a second chance. He didn't really feel... he had fumbling issues in Washington. And
I think it was a bit unfair, a bit unjustified. Fumbling issues can come for a few reasons. It's not always mechanics. I mean, he was a bit unlucky, I think.
So, he's just an interesting
one. Look at some of the handoffs he had to deal with. It was atrocious. I feel a bit sorry for him, actually, for that. So, I'm sneaky on Corey Clement. Well, I have been up to this point, and I'm letting a bit of a cat out of the bag when I say that when redraft's around the corner. But you know what? I don't want these players going cheap, so...
someone's going to get him above you.
I'm not letting some wide receiver running back zero option go in Corey Clement early. No. Don't be surprised. I go in a bit higher than most people think for Corey Clement, much more than most people think. So we're definitely going to make sure we
him in PPR.
We'll take away some of those. I like him even in redraft.
I'm not so keen in redraft in normal standards.
We'll see what happens. He did very well last year. and there's a lot that can be liked about high octane and good defence.
He's a bit similar to Tarek Cohen.
A lot of opportunity.
Who you also like, don't you?
Yeah, massively. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the wide receivers. Can you see much? We talked about Aguilar. Can you see much change in Alshon Jeffrey's production? That seems a similar role going to be.
Yeah, I mean, he did well last year. He's a player I struggle to pick, and not because he's not a talented wide receiver, and I really should give him a bit more faith. It's just every time I've picked him, he's kind of been a dud.
You should go again this year.
So I'm kind of avoiding, but I understand if people take him, and I think I guess it's the same role, similar fantasy value.
If you take him this year and he goes down again, we can all start dancing, and
Thanks,
everyone's a winner.
Everybody's happy except me. Yeah, that's great.
Nothing wrong with that, I think.
Oh, thanks, that's nice to know where your friends are.
Friendly rivalry.
Fantasy friends always want you to do well, I notice.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, there we are.
Okay, they brought Mike Wallace in.
Steady
Torrey Smith role.
I mean, look, his age
seems to be a fading force.
His age is the issue. But for this year, in a high octane offense, Mike Wallace obviously has value. He's ADP again, through the floor, very cheap. There's nothing to be not liked about. I mean, there comes a point in the draft where you look around you, and are there any exciting rookies that could do better than you think? And he's at that point in the draft where no, and you're looking for steady players or players that can give you
done it,
who have done it, and who could be useful in the flex or could be useful when you need to cover those bye weeks. Well, certainly that's a very steady player. He's
a player that you're looking at desperation. If you're taking him, in my opinion.
But he can definitely produce on any given Sunday.
He's a sort of player that. He'll do nothing for 4 weeks, and then when you're playing against him, he'll score an 80-yard touchdown.
Well,
that's just the way it goes.
This is the thing. Again, we're talking about here. We're talking about Mike Wallace. We are talking about deeper leagues, really, primarily. That. But those are the kind of decisions you will have to make in them. Often, when you're dealing with a 10-man or 12-man, you won't have to worry about a Mike Wallace decision because you've already got far better talent on your team and bench.
Well, they've got Marcus Wheaton. Okay.
Yeah, let's move on. I don't want to talk about
Matt Collins is an interesting rookie. Yeah. Maybe not for this year, but
I think going forward, I think you'd be one to talk. We'll talk a bit more about him probably next season, and he might show some flashes this year that are interesting.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what he does. Let's talk about the Washington Redskins.
Fascinating team.
Right, this is a team.
Made so many good decisions.
This is one that if you nail this team, it could be really good for you. Alex Smith, game manager, but. He had some impressive throwing stats last year when they asked him to go deep.
Yeah.
He did have the weapons with Tyreek Hill, obviously.
Yeah, very much.
A speedster.
Yeah. Does he have those weapons now?
He's got Paul Richardson, so
does he have the coaching to do it now?
That is a different question. What will they ask him to do? I mean, potentially they got some good. I mean, Alex Smith is solid professional.
Yeah, I mean, we can't argue with argue with his stats, and we can't argue with the fact that the guy produces, and he has produced.
He won't let them down.
He has produced of a very high caliber standard. I mean, he's capable of top 10 quarterback numbers. So we can't sit here and say he's no good because he obviously is. And in deep leagues, when you're looking at quarterbacks and you need a second to backup, I mean, he's very good, very very good. Probably one of the best of the that tier.
Now, this is another team, very exciting rookie, Darius Guice.
Yeah.
And I like him a lot. But no, I like him a lot. But you wonder why he dropped in the draft. Was there something in the... You see, everyone was saying, branding around the words immature.
No, well, I don't think that's fair. I mean, if we look at the issues that he's going to face to be fantasy relevant, let's start there. What do you think? If I ask you this question, so in your view, what are the potential areas that can hold him back as a player to produce year one?
My thoughts on him are great player.
Yeah.
But he's going to be limited because of Chris Thompson's going to be the third down back, the catching back.
Yeah.
So that's going to limit his value.
Do you think?
But I like it. I like his talent a lot. I think he's going to be good.
Do you think anything in his past will hold him back?
Well, hope not. I mean,
all I'm saying is there anything about him that you would be concerned about? I mean, I think
I watched a couple of interviews with him at a Redskins camp, and the more you listen to it, he's very infectious. He's going to be a fan's favourite, I think.
Yeah.
But he is somebody that could do something.
I just think the one problem I have with him, I think he's definitely going to be useful year one. Definitely. Obviously, he's going to get work. Of course he is.
I love the talent.
My concern is catching-wise, it's been a big problem for him. I mean, 2 catches a game, maybe. I mean, if he goes to 3 or 4 catches a game, that's a really good floor. That would be amazing ceiling if he got to that point. But I think 1 or 2 is about as best as we can hope for. That kind of makes him a first/second down, occasional third down back.
I think he'd be the goal line back.
But yes, definitely.
But they have still got Rob Kelly as a bit of a...
More often than not, though, they're going to be chasing games, I think, Redskins, in my view.
So they're going to
have to throw and use Thompson a lot more. So that would be my only concern for year one.
They've also got Rob Kelly and Samaj P. Ryan. And Martis Carter, he's a rookie that's going under the radar a bit, but he might
I like
feature at some point.
I can't imagine him not becoming the guy. If I'm being honest,
Geis will be the guy.
I think he becomes the guy. Down. But his ADP and stuff like that, well, you have to take that gamble. That's what it will come down to in big leagues. You have to take risks, and players like him are part of that risk.
Redskins have always said, a lot of people saying Chris Thompson's a man to own and all this sort of thing in the Redskins. I think in PPR, they may be right, but he is fragile and they know
fragile.
That.
Yeah,
he's never going to be a 3-down back because he's not got that in him. He's not that big.
No,
he's not,
he had a wonderful 2017 till he was injured.
Yeah,
wonderful 2017. He was amazing. He was outstanding, and rightly so. He was electric. But you've got Thunder and Lightning here. Geis and him together could be really, really potent. So there is a lot to like, and I'm there may be a situation where I get a chance to own a Geis for this season. I will certainly take a chance because he may not.
Not going to happen.
No,
you're drafting Alshon Jeffrey.
Yeah. Well, obviously him and other
we've decided this.
Decided, yeah. But I think I wouldn't mind him on a team, and I really would be quite excited to see what we can do because Washington always get more wins than you think they're going to do. But they have made some bad decisions.
I think hope they're going to do in my case.
Well, yeah, I just hate the way they handled the quarterback situation. I think Alex Smith is a bit of a...
Yeah, they shouldn't have let him go.
It's a last...
They shouldn't have let Cousins go, should they? I mean, he was a franchise, for live quarterback, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was fabulous. You hold on to those players. They rarely come around and you rarely ever let them go. And they did let him go and they made an awful hash of it. And Minnesota is set to really gain, I think, for this year. It's going to be an exciting run for them.
Yeah, but very stranger things have happened where they don't work out.
It's true, yeah. Stranger things have happened. It's a new offense.
You think great offense, great receivers,
good quarterback, and it just doesn't work.
But yeah, there's someone in it.
Well, things always don't. They never work to plan. But
it's never that straightforward. Is
no,
it?
but I would.
Maybe it is.
But all the things I've seen, I don't think this is going to be a problem for Kirk Cousins. This is.
No, I love his talent.
I like the defense. I like the offense. It looks exciting.
Okay, well, let's talk about the receivers. Let's go on the tight ends first.
Yeah.
Jordan Reed, he's still alive.
Well, he does what he always does. When he plays, he's definitely in that conversation for a good tight end.
And if you look at Alex Smith with Kelsey, then
very fantasy relevant.
Exactly. And Jordan Reed's always been fantasy relevant. But can he stay healthy?
No. And this is the problem. How many games we get, we don't know. We know he'll get injured. We know it. We just know. It's just when and how many. So
what about Vernon Davis then?
I think that's sneaky good, and I would agree with you.
I like him a lot.
He's one of my kind of let everybody else pick their tight end. I'll take Vernon Davis, thanks, and I'll have another guy who can just fill the gap for now.
Ben Watson or somebody.
See what happens. That I agree with. That's good fantasy value and good advice.
I mean, Reed could be great if he stays fit.
I just don't see it.
It's a big if.
It's too big an if he doesn't, and the way they'll be chasing games, no, he won't stay healthy. So
okay, so we've got 3 receivers probably that are going to be fantasy relevant. Paul Richardson,
yeah,
super fast.
Showed real flashes with Seattle, but never quite ever held it all together.
Jamison Crowder is like 5'8", is he?
Yeah, I'm not a buyer. I can't get excited.
More so in PPR.
Yeah. I mean, you hear all this. He's a good best ball player. He's not. They're not.
He's a steady PPR player, I think.
Yeah.
If you're playing full point PPR, he gets you a few catches.
Yeah, it's all you want, 3 or 4, and hopefully a few yards to go with it, and maybe the odd score.
I think this guy is key to their whole season, Josh Stockton.
Yeah, I agree.
Is he good enough to be their wide receiver 1?
Can I be honest, right?
Yes, I hope you are.
All the scenarios I've seen, right? So you put Alex Smith with these 3. What do I think? I ain't touching. You could have them. Yeah, I mean, Geis, yeah, sure. Thompson, yeah, definitely, because that's relevant.
Vernon Davis,
yeah, definitely relevant. But the rest,
at the right price.
Yeah, the right price. But the rest now,
I'd take Reed at the right price.
Yeah, well, of course.
If everyone's like,
of course, absolutely, because while he plays, he's fantasy relevant, absolutely. But you will have to get somebody else to go with him because at any point he goes down and you've got to get rid of him. So. That's where Washington's season is. It is an interesting one fantasy-wise. Because I think you can nail it. I think you can say Geis is the guy. Thompson will have a role. We like Vernon Davis as the kind of sneaky pick underneath Reed. That's it.
Brian Quick?
No. Nothing about
They've got a couple of exciting rookies for the future, maybe. Trey Quinn and Simi Cobbs Jr.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll make the team, but they're certainly ones to keep an eye on.
There's certainly players I've taken a few punts on in some dynasty leagues.
Rob
You got
Kelly?
to, haven't you? Well, he had his chance. That's when
He
I
didn't do badly.
that's what I said. I got him in a league. I picked him up on a waiver wire in one league. I did the right thing with him. I used him as long as I could, and then that was exactly the right time. I got rid of him.
You don't want to know anymore.
It was the perfect moment to do everything. I did everything with him that you could, and got rid of him at the perfect moment.
You're such a user.
I know, it's terrible.
Okay, we'll move on.
Fantasy user there. Got everything out. Squeezed the last bit of lifeblood out of him, Rob Kelly. And then
Another exciting team to talk about. NFC North we're moving on to now. Chicago Bears.
fabulously looking.
They've
very
got
interesting.
they've got a whole new team basically.
Yeah, they look really interesting for this year. I mean, they really are improved. Their defense is really exciting, looks interesting. The offense to go with that looks interesting. Everything looks right. But
Let's start with the fantasy enigma, Kevin White.
yeah,
He's ready for his fifth breakout year. They shouldn't use the word breakout because that's literally what happens.
In case of glass, isn't it? In case of emergency, break out Kevin White. Yeah, no, I'm not. I can't
They're
buy
talking
into
him up. He's been electric.
Oh, he said this last year. Do you remember? I think we had this conversation.
Yeah,
Kevin White's
I
been
laughed
electric
then.
in character. I wasn't buying then. I'm not a buyer now. No, I'm still not buying him.
If
I
it was
haven't been proved wrong.
super deep, but they
Yeah,
have got.
but only if and only maybe, and he'd have to go absolutely. There'd have to be a disaster, and even then, I'm still hesitant. So
Well, they've also got Alan Robinson, obviously, grade A wide receiver.
yeah,
Missed all of last year.
yeah,
What do you think of him?
it's a great offense to be in, isn't it? We've got dual threat running game. They've got a quarterback that's emerging or trying to emerge. You've got a good line, good defense, good chance for this year.
He's a really interesting quarterback, isn't he?
Yeah.
Trubisky for this year.
Yeah, very.
He could take up. He could take a big step forward, like Goff did last year.
This is literally how it goes for the Chicago Bears. It's as he goes, they go. If he takes the step up, even if he's just steady, the team will fly. They'll do great.
But at least he's got the weapons now.
Oh, he's got everything.
I'm not including Kevin White. They've ticked up
They've got everything going.
Alan Robinson. He's really good. Got a good rookie in Anthony Miller, and
you know how high I am on him.
We both love him.
I'm absolutely. The reason I'm so high is because you see the defense. The way I look at it is the perfect scenario. Look, Trubisky needs a guy that can get open quick, right? Because your first read has to be the guy you think he's open. I throw the ball in, and that's what you're going to need for this year. Miller will do that, and I believe Robinson will stretch him, and Robinson will have moments where Trubisky can launch it deep, and he will get some really big plays. Alan Robinson he'll have a very interesting year. But Miller's the consistent, I can see it 5 to 7, 5 to 8 catches. I don't see Kevin White doing this.
They've got Taylor Gabriel as well.
I see Anthony Miller coming on from almost day one. I'll be shocked if Anthony Miller doesn't really start producing quickly.
He's someone we like a lot.
I'm
but
very,
you
very
have got to be
high.
a bit wary.
You have to be wary. You don't have to believe in him, but get him at his ADP. That's all I'm going to say. Don't overstretch. Get him at his ADP if you can. Get him loaded onto a few teams. I've got him on a couple. I'm happy to have him.
I traded into you, actually.
I did buy in. Yeah, me and Al did do a trade. That's a really good trade.
It was a blockbuster trade,
This is
wasn't
a
it?
very interesting trade because most people were a little bit... I wouldn't say upset, but I would say that they
I was
were
upset. I didn't want to get rid of him.
I traded Devontae Adams for Anthony Miller and a first-round pick next year.
And a second-round pick.
And a second-round pick to quantify. Now, most people are going to go, what are you doing? But the truth is, I'm buying into what I believe in Anthony Miller I've seen. I'm getting stock for the future. Technically, I'm getting 3 for 1. And you're buying. This
I'm trying to win now, and you're building...
I'm kind of. I think my team's quite good for this year, but I'm also building for next year. So we'll see how that plays out.
You've got 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks. You've got Anthony Miller, exciting rookie.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I do believe in Anthony Miller for this year, and you know how highly. So there's a lot to like. And it's the perfect fit in the perfect team with a good defence. So I really like that. And the running game is really good. Jordan Howard is the 1-2 punch. It's a bit like Geis, who we just talked about Washington. Jordan Howard is that kind of role. He won't be a third down back because he can't catch very well.
He can't see. That's the problem.
He's gone to Specsavers. They've done the operation.
Yeah.
It ain't going to cure the problem he's got. He just isn't a natural fluid catcher of the ball. That's the problem Geis will have. They'll be great in the 1-2 downs or where a third down exists because it's short yardage. Howard, sorry. But I love Tarek Cohen for this year exactly the same as I love Corey Cohen.
I like
and
him.
if you want Tarek Cohen, and I've already picked him up on a few leagues, if you want him in redraft, you're going to have to pay the price because he ain't going to go cheap either because I'm going to make sure none of these 0 wide receiver clever people get the chance to take this kid. You are going to have to pay your price for him.
For me, I wouldn't want him unless it's PPR.
I still like him even in redraft. So we'll
and
see.
he also takes some of the value away from Howard, which is annoying.
I'm not buying into Howard's ADP, so I'm happy to take Tarek at his.
Yeah, no,
ADP.
I get that.
You know, I'm not buying both. I'm buying one, and I'm always taking the cheaper kid because I think they really add to what I've already got. I would love to own them with already having 3 running backs, now Corey Clement and Tarek Cohen for my 4th and 5th, and then slide them in when I need them for the bye weeks or anything happens. I think that'd be a very exciting team.
No, we shouldn't brush over the tight ends here because Trey Burton could be a sneaky pick this year.
Yeah, very good pick.
They said they're going to sort of play him in the role that Zach Ertz played, but
I think he has a really good chance to break out for this year and actually become top 7, 8 fantasy tight end maybe in that the old Delaney Walker
the only
role.
thing that worries me is they've got him obviously. They've got Deion Sims still. Got Adam Shaheen, who's
well, I think we have to be honest and say some of these guys are going to be out of the 53.
And I think they've re-signed Zach Miller as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're going to look at here is very simple. I think
does that put you off in any way? Or
no, I'm still very. I think it helps.
I
mean, Trey Burton is one of them that you don't go after him as your main. You go after him as your second, and hope that your main does what he suggests he's going to do. But if there's a Trey Burton, if there's a situation where your main tight end doesn't produce, Trey Burton could be the guy.
Well, Burton's probably too high to be your second tight end.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
ADP 107. That's above Aguilar.
It's above Aguilar, but I mean,
that's above Cohen.
I've got to be honest. The problem I have is
you're looking at Cohen or him.
I'm taking Cohen. I'm taking Cohen ahead of Aguilar, but then I'm taking Aguilar very close by. These are the kind of players I'm targeting. I have targeted. I have got them already this year. So I'm not hiding anything here. Dynasty has been really useful because we're able to open more information up because we've already done it. Now, as for redraft, I'm definitely not going them cheap. And I'm going to give you an example of this. So if you say Tarek Cohen to me is currently 107?
Trey Burton was 107. Cohen is 109.
Okay, so 109. So let me give you an example of this. So in a big league, 16-man we're going to use here because that's the easy one.
It's interesting.
We're looking at round 5. By the end of round 5, you're already 90 picks in, right?
It's interesting because for the team.
So I'll give you an example. 5 rounds in. So I'm going to tell you now is a piece of logic. Okay, we've always said before that we use stretch. Occasionally, I'll stretch a round and a bit for a player. Round 5, I've already got 3-4 running backs, and he's my 5th. Thank you. I'll take it, and I'll worry about my wide receivers after that because I am absolutely enamoured by what these third down backs can do even in redraft. If you just think about what can go wrong, because if Howard fell over, Tarek Cohen's, even if it's a small,
he's not going to be a running.
No, but even if it's a small increase,
so who would run between the tackles if Howard fell over?
That's a really good question. It's
difficult. It's not going to be Benny Cunningham.
No, it's difficult to quantify that.
Tequan Mizell, I don't know a lot about him.
It's difficult to quantify because we haven't had that scenario happen yet. But
yeah, it'd be interesting.
But there's those kind of things you have to kind of consider. That's why I think Tarek Cohen would get a boost, even if it's a 10%, 15% boost.
Because he'd be the RB1.
He'd have to get some chances. So I really like him. I like Corey Clement. I have no problem shooting for those guys because I'm denying any of these 0 wide receiver drops or anybody that thinks that they can just get 1 or 2 running backs and then come back on the bounce to get them.
Well, we're in a big league. If you're in an 8 or 10 team,
you don't have to worry about that.
Exactly,
you can just, you've got your.
You've got to tailor make it to your league.
You've probably already got 4 or 5 running backs, and these are guys that are bench warmers for essence, unless something tragic happens to your team.
Yeah. If you've gone wide receiver heavy and you're in PPR league and you need a running back,
these are great.
Yeah, I mean a lot of these players we've just been talking about are actually in the same range. We've got Sterling Shepard at 101.
Yeah.
We've got Trey Burton at 107.
Yeah.
We've got Tarek Cohen at 109. Aguilar at 111, and Jordan Reed at 113.
I'm taking Tarek Cohen ahead of them all, but Aguilar close by. It's a 1-2 for me. If any of them are there, I'll have them.
I think that answers the question, right? Okay,
the Bears look exciting for this year, and to end on, really, they are a very interesting fantasy
league,
commodity. Very interesting.
Detroit, we're on to now.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with the running back situation.
Yeah.
Because there are loads of them.
Yeah.
On their depth chart at the moment, we've got Amir Abdullah.
Yeah.
They seem to have lost faith in him.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
He could get traded.
Yeah, I think
LeGarrette Blunt.
I think there's more chance he does get traded. To be honest.
LeGarrette Blunt.
Yeah.
He's been steady, big back, hasn't he? They got Theo Riddick, who's great in the passing game. They got Zach Zen and Dwayne Washington have been,
interchangeable. Yeah.
But they've been on the squad, and obviously young rookie Kerryon Johnson.
Well, everybody's very high on Kerryon Johnson, but as we said in our rookie podcast, well worth a look actually, our top 24 and how we rated them. I mean, he would obviously still be picked in the first round of any rookie draft, but he would be the end for me of the running back list. Not because there isn't a chance, of course there is.
Yeah, but the backfield.
We always say there's an opportunity. Where there's an opportunity, you don't necessarily need absolutely all the talent in the world. But this is a very, very murky backfield. This is horrendous for me. This one, I don't see an absolute clear path to a start. I just see a situation where we don't know who's going to be cut. We don't know who's going to be traded. We don't know who's going to be kept. We don't know how it's going to shake out. This is one of those.
And we don't know if they actually can ever get a running game.
Yeah,
because
can they get a running
one.
game going? Because are they always going to be chasing games? Is Matthew Stafford going to have to carry the team on his back? And I have to be honest and give him. I think I shouted it out last year. Give full credit to the guy for carrying his team as he has done. He's very loyal.
He's a quarterback. I'm very happy to.
Yeah, I like him. I mean, if he's one of the last off the board in terms of a large league, I think he's a good quarterback to own because you might get higher numbers than you think. So I'm worried about the running game massively. Kerryon Johnson.
He's only 21 as well.
I'm not buying into Kerryon Johnson's ADP currently as it stands out. Sorry, I can't go in that hard and that early for him. There are other players I would prefer to target, to be honest, because I don't like this situation.
You touching any of these tight ends? Luke Wilson, Levine Tololo.
Well, I think
Michael
Luke,
Roberts
I
has been
think
mentioned.
Luke Wilson has showed again in the teams he's played for. There's flashes of.
But would you want to draft him?
No.
Okay.
No.
We'll move on.
I think you pick him up.
To
be honest. If you needed someone to cover a problem.
Wide receivers, we've got Golden Tate and Marvin Jones have been the 1-2 there. Pretty successful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit surprised that Marvin Jones gets no love compared to Golden Tate. I'm not quite sure why everybody buys.
They're different players, though. I think Golden Tate.
Why does Marvin Jones so universally not loved? I mean,
if you play in PPR, he gets less catches, but bigger catches when he does,
Yeah.
and he gets more touchdowns. Tate gets a lot more catches in PPR. He's better.
Yeah.
Marvin Jones, I'd take in standard if you weren't getting a bonus for catches.
Yeah. I can understand that.
You've also got Golladay, who
exciting for this year.
He's somebody we flagged up last year.
Certainly showed how good he is in the red zone, and there's a real
flashes.
opportunity for him this year to take another step forward, and it won't surprise me if he does, and he'll be more fantasy relevant probably the year after this.
Well,
assuming Stafford's okay.
Let's hope he can stay healthy for one. Okay.
He could be another Kevin White, couldn't he? If he
He
can't,
could be the new Kevin White.
An enigma, but at least he's shown something.
Yeah, he's done more than Kevin White.
I like Marvin Jones out of that group, if I'm being honest. I really do like him. I think he's so solid a pro. I mean, it's not exciting. The ceiling is the floor. You know what you're going to get. I think it's pretty steady.
I think if I was going to own, I don't mind Marvin Jones. As taking him as a second or wide receiver.
It's fine. He'll do a job, and he'll do a good job for this
Tate,
year.
I don't mind in full.
Because they're going to throw a lot, aren't they? And somebody benefits, and it's normally Marvin Jones.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, we're on to the Packers. Now he's a player that.
This is a great.
Let's start with Randall Cobb because he's somebody.
Yeah, we've had a great question about him.
Yeah.
Let's start with the question. So the question was, why was I so low on him? Really, why was I so low? And I think what you have to do is the reason I've been low on him is twofold. And I think there's a fantasy bias in that lowness. So I'll start with the fantasy bias. I've owned him when he's been rubbish. So that's the first.
That's
thing.
why I like him.
But I'm going to quantify. Thanks for that. But I'm going to quantify why I'm not buying this year at his ADP. And his ADP is very fair, but I'm going to say this, right? So if you look at his stats and the amount of time he's been in the NFL, it averages out. And I know that this can be a bit misleading at times, but you can look at this mean mode or average. You can look at it whichever way you want. Yeah.
I think it's going to be mean.
And you can look at it. You can look at it any way you want. And the truth is, he's had one season above 10 touchdowns. That was in 2014, where he got 12. And he's had one season where he went above 1,000 yards. And that was the same year he had 1,200. And that sounds amazing, but actually, when you look at everything else, when you look at it all logically and you put it all together, no matter what year he's been in, he averages out at 730 yards, 5.5 touchdowns. I think that is about the ceiling. Now, if you think that's safe at that point in the draft, it probably is. And then maybe, because we've said this before in another video, we said that sometimes when you look at when you look at offenses and you look at Green Bay is a fantastic one. Of course it is, because it's got arguably the best fantasy quarterback in the league.
I don't think there's any argument.
You're going to be relevant whether you're the one or the two. And that is true, except if the two is this guy.
Number two.
Is this kind of guy who... There are other players chomping at the bit to get this role. Devontae Adams was theoretically the 2, which has now become the 1. Cobb had the chance to be the 1, and he's always been the 3, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I actually still think he's only as good as the 3, because that's what his stats tell you. Yeah. So my view is that there's
but
a
Nelson's
gap.
gone now. So
yeah, but there's a gap for someone else within that team to come up and do really well. Now, it might be that Devontae Adams, and he probably will, because I've traded him to you, as a stratospheric year, and Anthony Miller blows out a Nico. but these things happen. It's fantasy. But I do think that there's a gap for someone else, and maybe it becomes that second role becomes a bit murky because several players get big weeks from week to week, a bit like their running game, which might be the problem.
Weirdly, he's going at ADP 110 between Cohen and Aguilar, which is...
And you know what I'm going to say there, yeah. It's that's the this year this is the interesting thing, because I'm glad that this has all come out in this video, is that when I've been examining ADPs at this point, as of mid-June, late June now, everything is culminated to that point of the draft. There's that's the kind of line, just as you go past it, around maybe more 2 rounds, the potential drops right off the wagon, right? It really drops away.
Well, this is why I quite like it.
This is why it's interesting, okay? So I'm not saying that he can't, because he has. But what I'm saying is, in a deep league, you'll be crucified for taking him at this point. But in a league where you've already got 4 or 3 wide receivers who are quality, sure, if he's there, go ahead. No harm, because if he does better than you think, and something happens to one of your players, you can plug him in. If there's a gap for a week, sure, plug him in. But I think what you'll be struggling with Cobb is the worst thing that any fantasy enthusiast can ever struggle with, which is what bloody week to play him. And that's what bugs me the most. You won't know. You just won't know.
Let me make a counter argument on Cobb then.
Please.
Because obviously Nelson's gone, so he should be the number 2 there now.
Should.
Aaron Rodgers is back, didn't play last year.
Yeah.
Didn't play much last year, obviously due to injury. He's been playing with the best quarterback in the league in a high-octane offense. Adams might get double team now. And someone's got to take Nelson's catches. I also like Geronimo Allison. I know he's not an exciting choice for a lot of people, but he could well step up this year.
Exactly.
They have got 3 exciting rookies as well, which is...
I do totally see what you're saying with Geronimo Allison. It does make sense.
I don't know how long it'll take for Jamon Moore, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Equinanius.
I think we'll know more.
Brown.
We'll know more very quickly whether they've got any chance if they make the 53, and then there's some relevance there. But some of them might just be practice squad players. But we'll see.
I've also heard people mention Trevor Davis is still there as well, who they quite like. So Ty Montgomery is a running back stroke wide receiver.
There's always fantasy relevance, and Cobb will have some, definitely. But I would say you're going to see a situation where you won't know from week to week when to play him. And if you're having to rely on his production week to week, you've got a problem.
Well, not necessarily rely, but he could be a handy squad player. I think there's a certain flaw with him.
Yeah,
it might be a very average flaw.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. As a plug-in player for a gap, don't have a problem with that. But I think what you're going to see is that the fantasy enthusiasts, unfortunately, have all got very hot on this. They've all got very talkative about it. Look at the value that this offers. Look at the wide receiver 2 numbers. I totally get it. I've seen enough to know that this value will rise, and I know it will rise by at least 20 points.
Yeah, but then I wouldn't be interested.
That's my point. So it's going to outplay himself, where I'm just not going to buy into it. So it's not for me. It won't be for me now either, because I know what will come. I can't see the value. Just can't see it.
Fair enough.
So I just won't buy into it, and hopefully that'll... I don't mean to be horrible. I mean, obviously, if you can get him cheap, go for it. If it's somebody you believe in, you must always follow your hunches.
I wouldn't be against it. He's growing on me.
But I'm gonna hold fire.
Especially more in PPR, where he's getting 100 sort of targets a year at least.
Well, that might be that could be a different ballgame, because if you get him at the right value, and you're looking at a guy who's potentially could get 65 to 70 catches, of course there's a value there in PPR, 4-point PPR, of course there is. But I still think there are players around that.
So you're talking about 170, 180 points.
Yeah, but around that ADP, there are a lot of players I would like to have maybe even similar or much better ceiling. So I'd be very rare to see him even squeak on then to my team. I can't see it. Right. But we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting.
The running back game.
This is fascinating.
Ty Montgomery, Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams.
Well, the fancy darlings out there have all said it's Aaron Jones' backfield, okay? Yeah. But I'm going to tell you the reason it's not, right? Aaron Jones can't block. Rodgers is coming off. I mean, he can't. If you look at the rankings of this guy, I testify anybody to look at it, he was 4th worst of all starting running backs with 100 carries or more. Right, 4th worst. Right, you got Aaron Jones coming back from an injury. Sorry, Aaron Jones. Aaron Rodgers coming back from an injury of this severity. You do not put a running back in who can't block. Now, on the flip side, Jamal Williams finishes in the top 4 of blockers for last year for starting running backs with 100 plus carries. So I think the argument is dead and buried. I know what I'm doing if I'm the coach. I put this kid in. I work on the issues that he's got. It's not bad. He's a bulldozer. Get him right. Get him into space. and this kid can do a job for you, that's all you need. Then
I
you
think
can
the worry here is...
rotate in Aaron if you want to, Aaron.
I think it's going to be a committee. I think they pretty much said it's going to be a committee. So Aaron Jones is the first one off the block, so... Would I take him that high, or would I take a risk on one of the others?
It's first down you're going to throw, potentially. You put Aaron Jones in?
Well, I think they would, yeah.
What, you're about to throw, and you're going to put.
Well, not if they're going to throw, but you don't want to tip off the offense.
And what's the game plan look like for Green Bay? Is it more running or passing?
Well, it's a mixture of both, isn't it?
Well, mostly I would say passing, because that's the kind of the game it.
Yeah, but a lot of them are like, passes to screen to Ty Montgomery or someone in space,
or Jamal
Williams, or a quick throw
or Jamal
to
Williams, where he absolutely outshone Aaron Jones.
But they both had their moments.
Yeah.
I mean, and
so you add the fact in that he's a miles better blocker and a better catcher. I don't really think this is an argument.
Is he a better catcher than...
I would, at his ADP...
I mean, they can work on Aaron Jones'
yeah, they can. At his ADP right now, I would, as a committee, if I had to take up... he's not my primary guy. He wouldn't be one I want to start unless the league is so big that you really haven't got much of an option. I'd take a flyer on him to see how it plays out for this year. And if it works out, then you've got yourself a bonus. And if it doesn't, you haven't lost a lot. So that's what I like about it. I think the ADP, Williams will drop away where Aaron Jones will continue to keep rocketing forward. But I think Williams is where the value is.
I mean, Montgomery might be where the value is. That's the thing. We just don't know, do we?
No, and he isn't. It's interesting you say that, because if you then had to say, well, how does Ty Montgomery's stats weigh up against the two? And the truth is, he's in the middle of the two, and maybe in the middle is the safest place to put him.
I mean, he's going, 149.
Very cheap, really, in the grand scheme of things. But it is a murky. It is, again, if you're being honest.
Murky, yeah.
If you're being honest, and this is the problem with these murky backfields, is you don't really want to own any pieces of them.
Aaron Jones 92.
Yeah, it's too high for me.
Okay.
It's just too high. But it's none of them you want to own, is it? It's because it's a deep league. And
Jamal Williams is actually 90, which I find surprising.
Well, this is no one knows what to do, and they're still too high. It's because it's a high octane offense. That's why the value's holding. That's the problem.
Right.
We'll see how it plays out. But I think Williams will be the guy based on blocking and pass protection.
Well, at least third down, maybe.
Well, I think that will come up a bit.
Obviously, we shouldn't fail to mention Jimmy Graham, who's obviously a red zone.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like, and I think a lot of fantasy enthusiasts have got this spot on this year, where they say, Jimmy Graham can get 8 to 10, absolutely 8 to 10 touchdowns this off. Why not? I mean, there's no Jordy Nelson for starters. We're talking about Cobb.
He's small.
So when people say who's going to vulture the work, I think Jimmy Graham vultures a lot of the. He's the kind of guy. If you want a redraft tight end who's not going to be, the first 5 picked, but likely to be the 6th or 7th off the board, it's fantastic value, because he won't do.
He won't get many yards.
He won't do a lot, but when he scores, it's going to be a touchdown of 30 yards, which is 9 fantasy points. It's very relevant. It's very, very relevant. So, I like him.
He's going Titan 6.
And I absolutely like it.
ADP is 68.
It's too high. The ADP is ridiculously high here. But I think in a lot of leagues, actually, the ADP for tight ends, the ADP for tight ends, I mean, in a large league, you're not paying 68.
You're getting a touchdown nearly every other game, probably at least.
I get the logic, but I think in deeper leagues, people will be scrambling over the running back, scrambling over the wide receivers. I think the tight ends drop a bit, so it won't surprise me that you go sort of 88, 90.
Be mine.
It could be yours. But then I wouldn't mind him actually for this year in a redraft league. I think he's got some value. Yeah.
Right.
I like him a lot.
Finish with the.
But then so do a lot of our people in our league like him. So
that's true.
So it's quite difficult.
A team that went close last year, Minnesota Vikings. We briefly touched on Cousins earlier when talking about Washington.
Yeah, but we could start with him very quickly and just say he's elite. I mean, he's top 5. He will end up being in the top 5. I know there's a bit of a push for who's going to be in that group, but he's got to be in the conversation.
I'd say definitely top 10.
He's got to be in the conversation for top 5, and you know why? Because he's proved it with Washington. That's no easy thing. He's got a much better offense. There's loads of weapons to love and work with. The defense is as strong as you like. What's to like about this situation? It's Kirk Cousins. Everything seems right for this.
Okay, well,
is that why it's wrong? And there's the you were alluding at this.
Well, they got Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to catch a lot of passes from Cousins.
He looked great.
Because Cousins does that a lot anyway.
We liked him a lot last year. We still like him for this year. I still love him.
I'm a big fan of Dalvin Cook.
I love him. I love him a lot. I mean, I just know that the price when you come to pay on any kind of live league, the price to pay will be second round on any league format size. And it
Might
could
actually
argue
be first round
it
in the
could be
16 man.
it could be first round, yeah, in a 16 man. You're absolutely right. It could be, but logically it should be early second. But logic doesn't come into a lot of things. But he is very exciting. I mean, I suppose the only
His
risk,
ADP is 15, so he'll go in the first round in our draft definitely.
but it's a very he showed.
Mind you, Adams is 18, and he probably will as well.
He probably goes first round. Well, he should go first round, really.
You wouldn't mind them, would you? Sort of Dalvin Cook and then Devontae Adams.
Yeah, but I agree with you.
On the turn. That'd be all right,
Our
wouldn't it?
league, in the leagues we're talking about, these redraft 16-man leagues, well, I would assume that Dalvin Cook will go inside the top, about the 13th, 14th or 15th pick off the board, and Adams also in that kind of range would not surprise me. And actually, we've seen a bit of that already, that people are prepared to stretch and take Adams this year, which is good. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I like Dalvin Cook a lot. I like him so much that I would take the chance on him if I was in a...
Would you take him above Melvin Gordon?
No, because Melvin Gordon has stayed healthy and has proven it, and there is something to be said by going for him. So no, I can't take him above him. No,
Interesting.
I can't,
Okay.
because there's a lot of weapons in Minnesota. So there's it's not clear cut and obvious, but certainly not a million miles
It'd be a
off.
very, very close.
It'd be a
one
very
for me.
difficult decision. Yes,
Okay.
a very difficult.
Carl
decision.
Rudolph, pretty steady tight end. Not,
Love him.
Not
Yeah.
exciting. He's a
No, it's
mid-range.
good. I mean, in a pack of tier tight
Tier 2 tight end.
tight ends. Thank
That
you.
was a bit of a-
That was a tongue twister there. He's as good as you like. He's one of those that will do really well this year. He's a good red zone target. He's got everything you're looking for. And the situation has just got better. But there are a lot of mouths to feed. But I think
And we know Cousins likes a tight end, so
yeah,
that sounds wrong when I say it out loud.
I know what you mean, but I think he will do well there.
Don't believe
And,
it.
He's as good as if you can get him tight ends, it'd be difficult to do. But if you get him tight end 7, tight end 8, that's pretty good value for a Carl Rudolph. I think that's pretty damn fine value. Won't go wrong.
Two great receivers, Adam Thielen and Stefan Diggs.
I'm a huge fan of both. I mean, they haven't quite broken out. I think this is one of the more exciting things to talk about, actually, because, again, this was a really interesting question. So I got asked the question, who would I take out of, and forget format. Format wasn't the question. It was just which one would I take out of Hilton and Diggs, or Hilton and Thielen. And I said, I'm taking either of these guys. And the people looked at it as if I was crazy. But the point is, the reason is simple. Now, we know Hilton...
I don't think that's that crazy now. I think they're probably going above.
Well, not to a lot of these fantasy football fans. That was a big comment, and a lot of people didn't like it, and they got very heated. There was good discussion.
Most of your comments.
Very heated over that Hilton would clearly finish higher than these guys.
Well,
But
Diggs is 35,
yeah,
ADP wise.
I
So
mean-
35th off the board. Hilton is 31, and Thielen's highest a lot of 30.
well, there's a lot of logic in what the fans are saying, because if you think about Hilton, his finishes have been very, very good even without luck. Luck is potentially coming back, but I'm just going to keep arguing the same points I keep arguing, which is at the end of the day, we don't know really if Luck is actually going to be fully back. We won't know until he actually plays. We won't know what ring rust exists for those first few weeks. And in fact, you would expect there to be quite a bit. It won't surprise me that it takes sort of 4 to 6 games. It could be less. It might be slightly more. That it takes for him to get that off his back and then come back to what we know he's capable of, which is a very, very high caliber quarterback. Certainly the sky's the limit for Hill. Of course it is. And it's more obvious and easy to take him. But Diggs and Thielen are the players that excite me the most for this coming fantasy season out of that range of wide receivers, because either of them is exceptional and the potential to destroy their previous best is through the roof. So what's not to like with that? What's the floor? What's the ceiling? The floor looks really minimal. Minimally. It can't be lower than they got last year. So I don't.
Unless they get injured.
Unless they got injured,
You
but you
can't
can't predict
legislate.
that. But if you say the minimum is what they got last year, and then you look to what's potential, I think this is skyrocket. I really do. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they beat their numbers by 300-400 yards each and 3 or 4 touchdowns each. By they beat their numbers. So I really like that. And it won't surprise me with this guy.
Well, they need to throw as much because they're a good defense. They're going to be ahead a lot.
I don't know. I mean, you just
So
don't.
will that affect their value of the game?
No, I think we've seen that these guys are more than Kirk Cousins likes to throw the ball around. I mean, he is a traditional gunslinger to me. He has all those
Oh, he
qualities.
is, yeah.
And I don't think you don't hold back a horse who wants to do this. You know this from gambling. So if the thing wants to run fast early doors, you let the damn thing do what it wants to do, because that's how they win. He is one of these guys who's going to attack the league. He's got a chip on his shoulder now with Washington. I'm excited to see what he does with Minnesota, and I like these two guys for this year. And if I'm faced with that difficult quandary, it's the end of round 2 in a big league, and those guys are sort of just early third round or late second, you kind of find it hard not to pass them up.
Yeah.
I really do. I'd struggle to pass them up because I just like the upside. That's how I feel about them.
Okay. Okay, I think that finishes off the Minnesota Vikings quite nicely, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Laquan Treadwell. Will he ever take a step forward? You can't really trust him, can you?
No, I mean third wide receiver at best.
Latavius Murray?
I can't see him winning the job over Cooks unless Cooks has a huge setback. So no, Cooks is the guy.
Well,
444 yards in limited action.
If they're worried about getting Dalvin Cook injured,
yeah,
and they were trying to see out a game because they're in front, I mean, he could get work then, couldn't he?
Well, I just think Cook looked excellent. Short, again, small window, a bit like Deshaun Watson. The window was big enough for me to see. I predicted what I thought both him and Leonard Fournette were doing. That was a good pick. Both tick players performed what we expected and exceeded it, which was exceptional. We put good values on them, and they both beat their metrics, which is amazing. Even though Cook's only played 4 games, he still showed enough for anybody that knows, and you can see it in the ADP. People are excited for him for this year. Rightly so. That offense is ready to go. You have to put a question mark on any player coming back from injury, but running back's window is short. I'm going to believe in him.
He's young and he's fighting fit already.
I would like to get him on a team this year. I probably won't be able to, but I would like to. We'll see what happens.
Alshon Jeffrey for you.
What, pick 1?
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'll put that. I'm going to plant that in your head. Okay, well, some news has just broken about Jameis Winston.
Yeah, this is quite worrying, isn't it?
He allegedly groped an Uber driver. Is that right?
Yeah.
They reckon he could miss like 1 to 3 games.
Yeah,
but they said that with Zeke and ended up being 6.
It does seem to. I mean, again,
not charged like Zeke.
No, I had a look at it. I had a look at the. Not the actual. There's no tape to look at. I looked at what the NFL are doing in terms of this kind of behaviour. What they do. It should. I mean, I know he's kind of painting the picture that it's only going to be a 1 to 3 game ban. Yes, in theory, that would make sense based on what the NFL has previously done. But last year proved the NFL has gone for a bit more of a hardline stance with this kind of stuff, and I think they have to. We talked about this and one of the reasons why they have to do it, although it's very frustrating and it can be a bit proven guilty before actually the truth was you're innocent all along, which is the worry. Accusations are very dangerous. But I think he's already kind of admitted to a large degree that, yes, he did do this, this has happened. It was in the past, it's going back a bit of time, but this is taking time to work its way through the process. I think he's going to face longer than 3 games. It wouldn't surprise me. It would not surprise me if the NFL offers 6. He may end up only missing 3 because it's plea bargained down, but he will miss time, and that has a problem. The only good beneficiary of this is Rojo.
Okay. Well, part B of the question is Jameis Winston good enough? Is he someone you'd want to draft? Is he good enough to... Will he kick on this year?
Well, I hoped that both him... Because I kind of put these 2 guys in the same class, so that's Jameis Winston and Mariota. We will talk about Mariota later, obviously, in another time. I hoped both would kick on a bit last year. Both certainly showed some capability. I mean, after all, Jameis Winston, up until last year, thrown 2 4,000-yard seasons, which sounds amazing when you look at it. But I think that's kind of a little bit. I mean, we now, after what we saw last year and the way that the coordinators have changed the game plan against Tampa, this running game couldn't come quick enough. They need this running game to break out for them. And he can kick on, yes.
Ronald Jones is definitely a plus for him.
Yeah, the ground game has to kick on for it to matter for James. It's exactly the same for Tennessee.
They stunk up the place running the ball last year.
It's the same for Tennessee. They have to get the ground game has to kick on for it to help Mariota out, and that's going to be the real test for both quarterbacks. It really is so important that works. So we'll see. But this is a big blow to Tampa Bay early doors. A bit of a worry actually.
Right. Well, yeah, obviously.
You know,
Fitz Magic, is he still there? I don't know if he's still there.
I don't want to look. I'm frightened if he is, because he'd probably get a start. Wouldn't he?
He'd bring back them that week for you when he had how many interceptions?
6.
I just like to hear you say it.
It's when I should have won the game and I lost.
So yeah,
it was a big loss.
Let's look at
minus 18. It's a bit hard to come back from.
You're looking at QB. Oh, it was a magic week. Looking at QB 13 is Winston, QB 14 is Andrew Luck, QB 15 is Jared Goff. Which one of them would you like to?
I think I'd take Jared Goff because
and he's going the lowest of the lot.
Yeah, I think Jared Goff because as much as there there are some things about Jared Goff that they brilliantly papered over with the way the Rams operate. It's a great testament to McVay, actually, and how he works. I think in this group he would be the one I want because it's a good defense. The offense is improved. They've gone for it for this year. It's all chips all in like your Devontae Adams pick. Actually, it's chips all in. Go for it all.
Go down. Another concussion might finish him.
Well, it's chips all in, go for it all, and that's perfectly makes sense. And that's what the Rams have got to do because the windows are. To win it all are tough, so why not go for it? You might as well. I mean, the Rams have got a chance. I mean, if I'm being honest, I'd be disappointed if the Rams don't finish in the top 8. That's a blow. If they get to the top 4, I'm expecting it, and that's where it gets interesting for them. Can they get through that championship game?
Well, we'll be talking about the Rams next week, so. Is there any other questions or anything else that you want to talk about?
Yeah, well, I got asked about Joe Mixon. There are a couple of questions. Joe Mixon was the first question that came off because they said, "Am I a little down on Joe Mixon?" I guess I've been hard on Joe Mixon, but it's not because I don't. I've said this. It's not because I don't believe on the talent. Look, he's the only running back they've got. If you think about any league, no matter what the ADP, worst case scenario is going in the 3rd round. Most leagues he's going late 2nd. Right? That's just the way it is. He's actually great value. It's great value. He's a player that could win you a championship. Absolutely, because there's no one to beat out. He is the man. So if you are the man, he has got a chance to absolutely be stratospheric for this year. He showed glimpses of that. Moments where I thought, yes, he's the player I saw. Of course he is. So obviously if he's sitting there in a league and he's still on the board, Dalvin Cook's gone. Some of the others have disappeared. Henry might have gone. He's a guy I'm looking at. Of course he is. I mean, because he's there next. So absolutely I would, and you went after him in one league, and rightly so.
Well, I'd like him more this year now.
Yeah.
He's only 21 still. I think you've got to remember that.
It's just
he's younger than a lot of the people coming into the league.
It's just Cincinnati and the way they handle players. I've never liked. I don't like the coach. I don't like the way
the coach is a big.
He annoys me rotten, but thank God I'm not.
I think he annoys any fantasy.
It's like we had Fisher for a few years and I didn't like him, but this is a guy that's worse than Fisher.
But it sounded like Marvin Lewis was going to be kicked out at the end of last year, and then somehow he's back in. And
I don't know how he's holding on to that job. I just don't.
And nobody does. So I guess he must be a good.
Must be.
Good talker.
So I think Mixon, you have to be logical. Mixon is going to have a good fantasy year because opportunity trumps everything else that we spoke about. Am I massively high on him? Not massively, but it's enough to know that at 2nd round ADP you can't pass it up. It's simple. It's too good a ceiling to not go after occasionally.
His ADP's 28.
Yeah, and that's fantastic value there, and I would take it all day long. It's just that there are some other players, the Dalvin Cook.
Adam Thielen goes one pick after.
Yeah, I get a bit more excited about Cook than I do Mixon, but not by a huge amount. And I would have a debate in my own mind if I've already got a great running back and then I've got a choice between Mixon and a Thielen or a Diggs. I've probably got a chance to own one of them in certain leagues.
All right, so which one are you going to take?
If I've already got a good running back and Mixon's still on the board, I'm taking another running back. So I'll take Mixon.
In the big league. You'd say if it's a 12-man league.
If it's 12-man, I'll take a chance on Thielen or Diggs here and then come back for another running back in the 3rd round or another wide receiver, see how it goes. I've already got one great one. Let's see what happens.
Rightio. Okay, you got any?
There was one more question. Somebody somebody made the point that I think is a very good one, is that should you even bother, and it's something that you're a big strategy fan doing actually, should you even bother with a kicker in some draft strategies or even for that mind a defense?
I hardly ever pick one.
Or even a defense. And I said, well, in some leagues, no, because sometimes it's worth having an extra punt deep down in the league, obviously. But there are only so many great defenses. If you don't get one, you ain't owning one. So the question is, do you even need to bother? You may be streaming all year round. And even in the big leagues, although the streaming window is so much smaller, let's be honest, every single year some defense comes out of nowhere.
I mean, Simon does it every year, and he does all right.
You know, and kickers, well, on any given week, any given kicker can produce any given number of fantasy points. So in my view...
Yeah, there are some that are better. More trustworthy.
But they're more, over the course of the fantasy season, they're much more steady. But you could theoretically stream kickers, and even in a large league you could. And you know what? Sometimes it's worth doing. It's just... I think it's sometimes happier. It's happy and medium. I'm a bit more happy if I've got a player I trust over one I'm having to stream or a defense I have to stream. Because
I think if you're in the second last round and there's a kicker there you like... I've got no... Yeah, no,
get him.
Otherwise, don't bother. Get another player for your squad.
Take a shot for your squad.
And pick one up the week.
And wait and see what happens, because sometimes those things lead to fantasy gold. that's what happens.
Yeah, pick one that's playing. Yeah,
So-
go back to week 1.
It's a very valid point. It's certainly something we do sometimes, and we do advocate. And again, just check in with your league rules. That's what those rules are there for, to see if you can find little niches to actually exploit. Same with bye weeks. That was the final question. Must cover that off. Can getting players on the same bye week, because it happened in our PPR video, is that a problem to anybody else? Well, late bye weeks is never a problem.
No.
So if you're looking 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks or more in, and most of your players are on that bye, that's a long way into the fantasy season. A lot can happen because you might pick players up, you might pick some waivers, you might trade it. I never worry about that. But it can also be a huge advantage, because if you know you've got 3 or 4 key players out 1 week only,
What I'd
then
also
they're back
say
for the rest of the season.
is if they are all on late bye weeks, and they've done really well at the start of the season, and you could already be in the playoffs, or option B, you're in trouble. You trade them and get people that are going to be around there,
Absolutely, yeah.
and you've got another chance to.
I've seen one chap do really well with this bye week strategy. That this is his strategy for bye weeks. He tends to buy into players that are much later than week 7. So it's always week 7 later players. Always targets them.
Well, Gordon did
And
it, didn't
long
he?
before, this isn't all on the same week, but long before you actually get to lose them. So he plays them. So they're about 3 weeks out from the bye week, and he starts trading them off. And he never has a player on a bye. I always find that quite an interesting strategy. And he always seems to do quite well with it. So
Well, it's like not having a bye week if you can get a player of equal quality.
so it's quite interesting. It has backfired sometimes, but actually when it's worked very well for him. So there's strategies within strategies.
I mean, it's quite an interesting thing. Look, when you're looking at trade near the end of the season, if your guy's on a bye week, but he's had a good year, so people are going to want him.
And even though they know they're going to miss 1 week,
Look for a player that's maybe not done as well, but he's had his bye week, and he's got good games coming up. A good
finish to the
schedule,
season. Yeah, absolutely. And you could be
and a good one, even more so first week of the playoffs, week 14.
Very
if that's
important. Yeah.
yeah. So just things to think.
So those
about,
were a few questions from this week.
Okay, I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for sticking to the end if you got here.
Massively appreciate it. We always say please like, subscribe and comment, and most importantly of all, do ring the bell, because that will tell you when any of the videos that we put up go live. And
He means click on the bell.
I got ring the bell. It sounds more fantasy relevant. Ring the bell.
We always appreciate it. I mean, we're a growing podcast, but we're still quite small, relatively speaking.
Yeah, but
aren't we?
we're UK, and you're always going to find it a bit harder. We're organic, and we knew that it would take a few years to crack in, but we've got loads of exciting things to talk about. So.
And don't be, if you're American and you like watching, don't be ashamed of it, because we've got over half of our viewership ends up being American.
There is something else as well. I think we should put this at the end of the video. Listen, obviously this year is a very important year. We think 3rd year of our podcast. A number of podcasts have started doing this. This is important. If you're listening in and you are a podcaster, listen, form a podcast league. Do not be afraid. We are willing to lock horns with anybody. Okay, we are not afraid to put our money where our mouth is and go after any league if anybody wants to do it. There are some people out there who will say a lot of things but won't follow through. We will do that. We're happy to do it, and I already have gone head to head with some people already this year. We will not be afraid.
Fun, isn't it?
Not really afraid to do it. Yeah, really good. And that will give you some bragging rights, because obviously if we flatline, fair enough, we flatline, and at least you know, and that's the only way you'll ever find out.
Okay, thanks very much for watching.
Thank you.